Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya yato anvayaditaratascha artheshu abhignaswarat Tene brahmahridaya adikavaye muhyanti yat surayah Tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha Dhamna swena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi Nigamakalpataror galitam phalam shukamukad amritadrava sanyutam Pibata Bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavukaha. We now enter the 26th chapter of the 11th Skandha of Bhagavatam with Uddhava Gita continuing. So Krishna now goes on to describe the essence of the greatness of surrendering unto the satsang, unto the association of the great sages, and also to turn away from the wrong kind of association in this chapter. After having described in the last chapter the nature of the three gunas, how the three gunas operate, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Therefore, to avoid the association of those in whom rajas and tamas predominate and to seek the association of those in whom sattva predominates is the essence of this whole chapter. So, Krishna therefore says one has to, having obtained the human body, one has to take oneself to the most pleasing conduct, which is to surrender unto me and thereby recognize me as the true self, as the one abiding in the heart of all. He says, Mal lakshanam imam kayam labdhva mad dharma astitah anandam paramatmanam atmastam samupaiti mam. So having obtained this human body, one has to engage in the right activities, in the right course of conduct, in the right association, by which one can recognize his own self, which is my very presence in the hearts of all beings. And in this way, completely freed due to complete surrender and wisdom, he says, Vimukto jnana nishtaya, by not swerving from pure wisdom and by abiding in pure wisdom, and thereby being free of the bondage of matter, one is completely detached, not affected by the unreal objects, even if they are perceived by the senses. And for this, Krishna says one has to, on no account, cultivate the fellowship of unworthy men who are given to sense gratification, to sexual urges, and so on. So, this is the important factor Krishna says in this chapter, not to cultivate the fellowship of unworthy men, which is nothing but the blind leading the blind. So if one follows such people, then it's the blind leading the blind, falling into a ditch. They fall prey to infatuation and thereby they lose their way. So in this regard, Krishna narrates the story of Pururava, who was caught in infatuation to Urvashi, the celestial lady, and when she went away from him, he was completely taken over with grief. So this episode, in fact, this story came in the 9th Skandha. As part of the lunar dynasty, Pururava was born and he was married to Urvashi, the celestial beauty, but she, the celestial woman Urvashi, left him abruptly and he was so infatuated with her that he roamed here and there. He finally met her in Kurukshetra, and even there in Kurukshetra, he could only meet her for one day. And then he was looking for her everywhere and trying to go to the heavenly realm to reach her through various fire sacrifices. So he went through all kinds of misery just because of his infatuation to Urvashi. And therefore he got disgusted with it finally, with himself for being so infatuated. And he sang a song of this disgust, in fact. And that's what Krishna relates here, how Pururava said about himself. He said, it's so astounding, the magnitude of my infatuation. My judgment had been completely clouded by passion, and I have spent so many years chasing behind this woman, Urvashi. I didn't even know how many days have gone by, sun rising and setting. There was such infatuation, though being a great king, that I was made to be like a toy deer in the hands of women and crying like a madman not even knowing what clothes I was wearing. I was following Urvashi, going here and there, and not even taking care of my kingdom, my responsibilities, nothing. What glory, what majesty, what lordship is there in me when I have wasted my life departing behind a woman, just as a donkey runs behind a she donkey? He says, anything else that one may have renunciation, study of scriptures, observe silence, all the rest, but if he is caught in lust, then all of that is stolen away. As it happened to me, I thought I am a very learned man, but I was blind to my own interests, and therefore I was enslaved by Urvashi, though I enjoyed her for so long because she was with him for many years and then she left abruptly. So he says, though I enjoyed the nectar of Urvashi's lips for so many years, the moment she left, I didn't have any satisfaction. It is like fire was the way the fire grows bigger when oblations are poured into it. That way, my desire for her was increasing the more time went without seeing her, and I could not be free of thinking about her. And even though she herself admonished me, this infatuation in me only kept growing. And in fact, he now recognizes that it's not even her fault because she admonished me first of all, and also it is my mind that is infatuated. He says, just as if a rope is there and the mind, due to ignorance, perceives the rope to be a snake and gets afraid, it is not the fault of the rope, it is the mind that perceived wrongly the snake. Similarly, I am the one who got infatuated to her, and instead of seeing the essence of her as pure being, I got infatuated by her body, by her external beauty, and because of that, I got so enamored by it, ignoring the impermanence and the temporary nature of the body, not even seeing that the truth that the body is only meant to eventually be burned or buried, and it is having no sense of permanence, it's constantly changing. Without recognizing all this, ignoring all this, overlooking all this, I was caught in the beauty of her and telling myself how delightful is her face, how charming is her smiles, and so on. And in this way, I got caught in her. And what difference is there between one who is caught in lust and even animals who are caught in the same way? Humans who are caught in this way are no different from animals. Therefore, he says, one who is truly recognizing the purpose of life ought to never be caught in lust, and not only that, he ought to never associate with men who are engaging in such behavior, because such association leads us to same kind of behavior. So this is the lamentation of Pururava, son of Ela, who, being separated from Urvashi, was lamenting in this way, and thereby he finally got detachment. He lost interest in her, and he finally awakened wisdom in his heart, and thereby he retired from his kingdom as well as he let go of all these desires and became free. Therefore, Krishna says one has to avoid all evil company and associate only with the righteous, because the righteous are the ones who will cut the bonds of attachment. The evil ones, the wrong company, will grow the bonds of attachment, whereas the right ones, the saintly ones, will cut the bonds of attachment. They are free from craving. They have their mind fixed on me. They are perfectly serene. They view everyone as same. They are free from the sense of I and mine. They are unaffected by pairs of opposites and they do not possess anything. These are the qualities of the people who are saintly, with whom one has to associate. Krishna says, Santo anapeksha machitta prashanta samadarshinaha nirmama nirhankara nirdvandva nishparigraha. These are all the qualities of Sant. Sant means saint. In fact, the word saint in English again comes from Sant in Sanskrit. So Sant are the saints or those who are anapekshaha, that is, they are free of any craving, machchitta, they are always having their mind fixed on me, Krishna says, on Supreme, prashantaha, ever serene, samadarshinaha, having equal vision, nirmama nirahankara, no sense of mine or I, nirdvandva, free from dualities, that is, not affected by the pairs of opposites, and nishparigraha, that is, not possessing anything. So, such people, such saints, are the most fortunate ones, and in their company, Krishna says, my stories are discussed, my teachings are discussed, which eradicate all sins. He says, Teshu Nityam Mahabhaga Mahabhageshu Matkataha Sambhavanti Hita Nrinam Jushatam Prapunyatyagam. So he says, in the company of such saints, there is chanting of the holy names of Krishna, the discussion of the stories of the pastimes, the teachings, all of these are discussed, and that purifies the mind of the one. So the two opposites are described. So the one who is infatuated to sexual pleasure or sense gratification due to wrong company, he wastes the human life living like an animal, as Pururava lamented out of disgust. On the other hand, if one instead seeks the company of saints, then this is what happens. There, in their company, Krishna says, my stories are discussed, my pastimes are discussed, my glories are discussed, and they who listen to them, sing them, approve of them, are respectful towards me, and naturally develop devotion unto me, acquire peace of mind. So he says, Taye Shrunvanti Gayanti Hi Anumodanti Chadrataha Matpara Shraddadhanascha Bhaktim Vindanti Temai. So by being in their company, by listening to such singing and glorification and stories of the Supreme Being, by singing them, listening to them, by approving of them, by listening to them with reverence, with Shraddha, Krishna says true devotion flowers in the heart, and one is automatically free. Then nothing else remains to be achieved for such a pious person who is in such company, because he develops devotion to me, who am the repository of endless virtues, the embodiment of truth, consciousness, and bliss. He says, Bhaktim labdavata sadho kim ananyat avishishyate mayi ananta gune brahmani ananda anubhavatmani. So beautiful verse. He says, in me, ananta gune, with infinite great qualities, brahmani, the pure Brahman, ananda anubhavatmani, the one who is the embodiment of truth, consciousness, and bliss. In me, when one develops true devotion and love, then what else remains to be achieved for one? Therefore, Krishna says all of this is rooted in seeking the company of saints, and by that, this devotion develops, this love develops, and by that, all negative qualities go away, and all fear, all anger, all ignorance, everything goes away. Therefore, Krishna says, just as a strong bark or a strong boat is the only resort for a man drowning, similarly, seeking the company of noble beings who have realized the truth and who are perfectly peaceful, they are the true refuge for one who is caught in the ocean of mundane existence. Therefore, Krishna says one has to always seek the company of the saints. He says, just as food is the life for anyone who's got breath, and just as I am the shelter for anyone who's afflicted, just as righteousness is the true wealth of men, so saints are the only resort for those who are caught in suffering. Krishna says, Annam hi praninam prana, artanam sharanam tuaham, dharmo vittam nrinam pretya, santo arvag vibhatyo aranam. So Krishna says, just as food is essential for one to keep the body alive, just as I am the refuge of all those who seek to surrender, just as righteousness is the true wealth, all of this is achieved only through satsanga. So he says the greatest resort is to seek the company of the sages. So he says, seek always the company of sages. Even the sun that rises every day only bestows external vision, whereas the holy men, they bestow inner vision which never leaves. The sun produced, or the light of sun gives vision that goes away when the sunlight is withdrawn. But once the vision, inner vision, is given by the sages, then that vision never goes away even when the sages leave, because they give eternal vision. Therefore, seek always the company of such sages who are my own self, Krishna says. They are the very embodiment of truth, of love, and they are verily my own self. So, in this way, Krishna says to Uddhava, you always listen to this discourse of Pururava, who lamented on disgust of being attached to infatuation, and thereby learned the lesson of not being caught in infatuation, and therefore listening to his song, and thus never getting caught in the company of the wrong kind of men, and instead listening to what I said, seek the company of the saints who will bestow effortlessly peace and wisdom. With this chapter ends. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.